and also had some ideas of why the ordinance came into being the way it was. And business owners that I've talked to, just regular constituents, have said to me that decreasing the quorum size relative to the number of council members implies that you need less people to make a decision before the governing body, and they feel that that is not the right way to go. However, I do see that we do have an issue. It's a significant issue, and that is that if one of us decided not to show up tonight, we couldn't even have this meeting, or any meeting for that matter. And that's been clarified by our legal counsel. So, understanding that we are a governing body of 5, plus the mayor, and we are a city of 20,000 people, and on the cusp of being a city of the first class, I do not understand why we would want to lower. Now, this is after talking to several people and getting a different take on this. Lowering the quorum requirement sends a bad message. However, we do need to have enough council members to actually do business. So my thought was that instead of lowering the quorum requirement, we increase the number of council members. If we increase the number of council members to a 6 or 7 person council, you could continue to have a 4-person quorum and do business, and we would not have the issue of if we had 1 or 2 council members vacate, that we would have a problem with doing city business. Now, that is taking it from a different direction from some individuals, and that is also meaning that we would have to, for lack of a better word, do this more deliberately than we currently are looking at. Repealing the current ordinance today, I think, would be a hasty decision. Could we do it in a couple of weeks or in a month and then continue to investigate? We do have time between now and the next election to be able to do that. I just don't feel that lowering the quorum requirement of how many people need to be sitting on this body in order to be able to do business is sending the right message to the people who just had an election in this town. That's having done some research and talking to people who have given me some very intelligent feedback on this issue. And I just wanted to throw it out there and see what you guys thought. I'm looking forward. I'm not looking backwards. We're not going to be at 5 council members forever. We are a larger city, and we will get even larger in the next 10 years with that intermodal coming. We're going to need more representatives on this body anyway. So I would rather think forward to fix the problem than to look backwards and just assume that we're going to have 5 council members forever.
Doesn't the statute in its current form, if we repeal Charter Ordinance 19, specify that we have 4 council members, 4 wards, which each ward, I think, is supposed to have 2 council members in it, right?
Well, the ward system brings with it some other problems. I don't think, to be honest, that we have the geographical size and the diversity in the community to warrant a ward system at this time. Now, if we were to expand the city limits south and east of I-35 on the other side of the interstate, or if we were to, with all due apologies to the Edgerton folks, if we were to absorb Edgerton, for example, and have Edgerton sitting on the other side of the intermodal, then I could see the merits of a ward system at this time. I don't know if we have the kind of geographical diversity, though, or the size in terms of square miles to be able to put in a ward system. And there's issues of participatory, the participation of the electorate that I don't think are going to allow us to have a ward system either, just because you may end up with certain wards where there are very few permanent residents, and they're going to be a single person that's uncontested for election after election after election. I don't know if that's necessarily good either. So I think in a year, maybe 2, maybe 4. we could look at a ward system. I think in the short term, we have to still opt out. We would have to revisit that in the future. But yes, I think that right now, a ward system would probably not be conducive.
That's a discussion for a whole other meeting.
That is true.
I mean,
That is true.
repealing Charter Ordinance 19 backs us out of a rut, which right now gives the mayor more power than the state statute would normally allow, right? Because as the statute says now, the governing body appoints. They don't say how they appoint, but they don't say, as it currently reads with Charter Ordinance 19, that the mayor appoints and the council confirms. So right off the bat, we get rid of that problem. Secondly, we get rid of the problem of having to opt out, at least for the purposes of appointing council members, of the poison pill statute, which requires us to publicly state that someone's unfit. And regarding the wards, there's absolutely nothing in the statute that I can read, and maybe Jim can comment on this, that requires us to take action immediately on going back to a ward system, or even going back to, more than 4 or 5 council members. Is there anything that requires that?
I would think you'd have to have it in place prior to the next election.
Well, okay, we had 2 years to talk about that. And in fact, as this memo states from Doreen, there is a significant amount of legwork that has to be done regarding census data, mapping, things like that. So I don't think there's any risk in repealing the thing that really causes us the biggest problem.
I'd just like a little clarification on what problems it's actually caused. I'll ask that, and I'll ask that bluntly. When has it been a problem thus far?
Well, it could have been a problem tonight.
When? Everything could be a problem.
Yeah, let's not talk over each other.
Okay.
That's fair, because I asked it, but yes, it could be. There's a lot of things that could be problems that don't present themselves as problems. And if we look at this issue, number one, I'll speak frankly and say I don't think it resonates with our constituents in the least. I think this is a pet project for 4 or 5 individuals that continue to bring it forward, but individuals from the public have not brought it to me. I've not heard of them bringing it to other individuals. I've spoken with some people that spent quite a bit of time on the campaign trail. They didn't bring it to them as an issue either. There's larger fish to fry. And if we want to talk about changing of quorum in some of those pieces, in my opinion, it's easier to manipulate a vote and quorum at 3 than it is at 4. In essence, we would provide the opportunity for the minority to speak for the majority, because with 3 individuals, it would only take 2 to pass any vote. So if anyone were wanting to manipulate in that some way, they'd be easier to do so, and 2 people do not speak for a council, in essence, do not speak for the city. So that's why I don't believe that quorum is something we need to address at this time. I don't believe it's a trend. Now, I want clarification from Cheryl and from staff. I don't believe poison pill is in discussion at this point because it's not part of Charter Ordinance 19. Right. So that's a completely different discussion that has to be had on a different night.
Then why is it attached to this document, I guess? It's clear that it impacts, what happens with Charter Ordinance 19 if we repeal it.
It was just a bullet in a memo. I mean,
It was a bullet,
that attached.
It's not referenced in Charter Ordinance 19.
But I don't see any reference. Apparently it's topical to Charter Ordinance 19 discussions because it mentions it in this memo. You're actually the one that brought this to the attention of Mike Press, so you must have thought it was topical to this discussion and relevant, right?
Yeah, well, and as Jim stated, we didn't include that in the request for the special city council meeting, and it's a point of procedure at this point that is what is going to prohibit us from discussing it. Go ahead.
However, it is something I brought up as the rationale for getting rid of Charter Ordinance 19, and that is that we no longer have to have you appoint someone and then have us confirm them or not confirm them. Under the Charter Ordinance 19, you appoint, the council confirms. So if we get rid of Charter Ordinance 19, then we all have an even vote. Like, again, I'm not saying the council vice president should appoint. I wouldn't expect that power, and I don't expect you really to have that power either. I mean, this is, as I said last time, this is a council meeting. It is the council chambers. It is the council that creates policy. You're the executor of those policies, and it's a one-person